as the mother of a proud trans man, the aunt of a proud trans man. My best friend's kid is trans, and my kid's best friend is trans.
Can you hear your own words and how insane this is?
Trans people are not invisible.
Yeah, we know. They're obnoxious.
They're everywhere. We can't get away from them.
As if we haven't learned from fascism, the extermination of human beings.
Okay, they exist. That doesn't mean they can rape women in women's prison.
This is what the conservative movement has wanted to do in this country for decades.
Recently, I've been feeling more feminine, and so I've adopted she, her again.
It's not even like I'm grasping at straws, trying to find a way to make this sexist. It's just dictionary definition sexism.
Most importantly, I am here today as the mother of a proud trans man. Of a proud trans man. My best friend's kid is trans, and my kid's best friend is trans. My trans kid had his top surgery at NYU a number of years ago. His doctors were fantastic. His surgeon was the best we could have imagined. And the idea that the city is filled with young people who thought they had a place to go where they could receive the highest care, and that place has now been shut to them, sickens me.
It's like comical. I mean, it's like a parody. This is the thing about a lot of, even I've dealt with a lot of people since I've started talking out about this stuff on social media. I get like DMs from friends or acquaintances saying that I've fallen down a right-wing rabbit hole and I need to stop watching Fox News. And it's so funny because they're always saying, listen to trans voices, listen to the doctors, listen to the parents. And I'm like, are you listening to the parents? I'm not, like, when I say that trans is a social contagion, I'm not getting that from Matt Walsh. I'm getting it straight out of the horse's mouth. Really, you have everyone you know has a trans kid, and it's not a social contagion. Like,
yeah,
it's just stupid. Like, or
and it's always celebrities just happen to have all the trans kids. Like, it's something in their blood.
Yes, and also, yeah. I mean, I even know quite a few people, like teenagers, family members with kids, friends with kids. Their entire friend group is trans, and all of them are white, and all of them have this like alternative style with green hair and piercings. And it's like, not only is everyone all of a sudden trans, but how is it that this thing that you can just happen to be born as only happens to white, emo, like alternative kids?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
They'll probably just say like, oh, we just need to work harder on them being accepted into like other communities.
It's just so ridiculous. I mean, the fact that she can say out loud, I have a trans kid, my friend has a trans kid, my niece is a trans kid. And it's like, can you hear yourself? Can you hear your own words and how insane this is?
Yeah, and I think this is dystopian because to watch, it's very sinister. And it's such a shame that when we think of what you described, this social contagion, you know, it's easy to look at those people and just be like, this is ridiculous. It's a phase. It's like being a goth. But unfortunately, it's so much more than that, because in the past, you could be an emo and it never resulted in removing body parts or being on really harmful drugs. And to anyone who did not know what trans was, to watch this video, like if you could have watched this 50 years ago, there is a woman in Times Square, wherever she is, you know, speaking into a microphone about how she has mutilated her daughter, and then a whole crowd of people are just cheering her on.
It's really like a science fiction movie. It's insane. And I mean, Helen Joyce said this best. I'm sure you've seen the clip. It's gone viral a few times, but where she said, like, these are the people who will never move on from this because they have harmed their own child. They've done the worst thing you can do. Society is already kind of moving on from this a bit. Everyone is deleting their pronouns from their bios. Everyone's kind of fed up. But it's people like her who will have to keep telling themselves forever, I saved my child's life. I saved my child's life. Like, they're saying gender affirming care is life-saving care to everyone else, but really they're telling themselves that.
Mm.
Because how else can you cope with the fact that you sterilized your own child and cut off her healthy body parts, and so did all of your friends? Like, these are the people where you can show them evidence, you can show them how many people are detransitioning, you can show them proof of all the harm that so-called gender-affirming care does, and you'll think that that will wake them up, but what it actually does is drives them even further into this ideological craziness, because they have to believe that they did the right thing.
Yeah.
It's really sad. It's scary.
No, you really hit it there. It's totally correct. And I just wonder, because at the moment trans is so sort of in, but there will be a time when detrans is in and everyone is going to be going, we have some now, but on TikTok, for example, it's fashionable to have ADHD, but like, what if one day it's going to be fashionable to come out in your late 20s with this big story about how you were led down a path and now you're this broken individual, and then that's even more clout and status. So I just wonder if the tables are going to turn, and then they're going to have to deal with it, right? Because their kid is going to say, like, why did you do this to me? And hopefully then they won't be able to run from it anymore.
I have a trans daughter. There are threats against her life. Just her existence as a human being. There are people that want to annihilate her and people like her. The level of hatred, as if we haven't learned from fascism, like we haven't learned what the result of that is. The extermination of human beings. Jamie Lee Curtis is scared, and you should be too. And Jamie Lee Curtis has a voice, and she's trying to use it, and you should too. And that's how we change things, is we think about them, we learn about them, and then we use our voices to bring attention to them and to fight against them.
Trans people are not invisible. Trans people deserve love. The queer community deserves to be lifted up. Music is love. Thank you.
DEI is not a threat, it's a gift.
I love how celebrities like Lady Gaga and stuff, they just come out with a bunch of random rhetoric on just like, we are not invisible. Trans people are loved. And it just means nothing. It means absolutely nothing.
All of it means nothing. All of their catchphrases, trans rights are human rights, trans women are women, trans people exist. It's just all these like lines that are, it's like, okay, they exist. That doesn't mean they can rape women in women's prisons. Like, what is your point? It's just, trans people are not invisible. Yeah, we know they're obnoxious.
They're everywhere. We can't get away from them.
For a decade, they've been everywhere. Sometimes I wish they were invisible. Like,
and it's funny because they're some of the few people in society who have in law been given special privileges for a man to beat women in the Olympics, for example.
Right. That's the thing. They're like fighting for trans rights. Not only do they have the rights that all of us have, they have extra privileges. They have extra rights, you could say. Like, they're given extra things.
Yeah.
Even though they supposedly make up this really small percentage of the population, everyone else has to like cater to them and watch what we say and just let them into women's prisons and women's sports. Like, everyone is like supposed to worship them and walk on eggshells. So then it's like, so are they oppressed? Are they these victims, or are they these people who get whatever they want? Like, it's kind of one or the other.
Oh yeah. But it's all doublethink, because Jamie Lee Curtis also talked about fascism, and they're always just talking to themselves, because Piers Morgan said this, and it sounds a bit hyperbolic, but I do think it's correct, that the left, like the hard left that talk about gender ideology, critical race theory, queer theory, all the kind of colonial guilt and just kind of hating your country and being open borders, like all this stuff. They are the real fascists, because they need everyone to think the same as them, or else they're in trouble and they, could be locked away, basically.
Yeah. None of them even know what the words they say mean. Like, they literally don't know the definition of fascism, or what a right is. Like, they literally don't know what the words mean.
Yeah.
They just use all these words, and I'm like, have you even looked that up in the dictionary? And they're just used interchangeably. It's like Nazi, fascist, white supremacist. They just use all these terms interchangeably with no consideration for what they even mean. It's just
Yeah.
whatever's going to scare people. Whatever, like, they'll never say trans people are not allowed to do whatever the fuck they want anymore. They'll say trans people are trying to be exterminated or erased, or like, it's always the most dramatic language possible to scare people.
Yeah. Yeah. And then meanwhile, there's all these people. We don't have to get into the whole Israel-Palestine thing, but meanwhile, they're the same people who are like diminishing and reducing the impact that Jews have suffered throughout history and like their Holocaust and stuff. Yeah. Just with people like Lady Gaga and Alicia Keys, you know, I understand if they might want to support this progressive movement, but like, surely they have noticed women's rights being taken away, women being assaulted, detransitioners regretting it. You know, I just wonder, like, what is going on inside their heads? Or maybe they just kind of don't really pay attention to those stories at all, and they live in their little bubble. I don't know.
Yeah, this is specifically with the women's rights issues. I mean, we're talking about celebrities, but this even goes beyond celebrities. The people who claim to be feminists or pro-women or pro-women's rights, but then they'll like make every excuse in the book why a convicted male rapist should be in a women's prison. Or they'll be all about women's rights, but then you ask them what a woman is and they can't answer. And this happens in the so-called LGBT community, which I have a lot of thoughts about that on. It happens in Hollywood. Like, these people get into these groups where, whether it's for fame, to keep your position in Hollywood, to keep your position within the LGBT community, whatever, you have to like basically make a fool of yourself. Everyone knows what a woman is, but you're forced to pretend you don't in order to not get canceled, or to show that you're always with the latest progressive movement. And yeah, I wonder how many of them really believe this stuff. There's no way that they, like, at this point, I don't see how anyone could really not know about all the harms of gender ideology. I know for a fact everyone knows what a woman is, but they'll keep pretending they don't because they're afraid of getting canceled or kicked out of their group or called whatever. So I think a lot of people
Gaga on International Women's Day posted a photo of her and Dylan Mulvaney, who has to be, you know, the most misogynistic, vapid, attention-seeking, quote-unquote, woman there is. You know, it's like, is that not offensive to Lady Gaga as someone who, you know, Lady Gaga has suffered sexual assaults, like, has many experiences that a woman goes through that Dylan Mulvaney has not?
It's interesting. I wonder, like, there's definitely some people who are, like, true believers and they really just are in an echo chamber and they don't know what's going on. But yeah, there's also a lot of people who I think are just pressured to perform wokeness.
Yeah.
I am not a victim, and I refuse to be a victim in this circumstance. None of this should be surprising to us. This is what the conservative movement has wanted to do in this country for decades. We must not catastrophize. We must remember we've been here before. As trans people, our identities have been criminalized, and we found ways to have community, to have joy, and to be ourselves. They told us they were going to do this. They're doing it, and accept that. In the face of this catastrophe, even as they pass law, and we can't do anything about the laws. They don't listen to the people anyway, but we can love each other. We can form communities. We can make those communities bigger and stronger and even more fortified. I refuse to be a victim. We must refuse to be victimized by this.
Demi Lovato has called out President Donald Trump after he signed an order stating that the U.S. will only recognize two sexes, male and female. Lovato, who came out as non-binary in 2021, wrote in an Instagram story on Tuesday, the 21st of January, January. If you are trans or non-binary like me, please know that I see you, I feel you, I am with you, and you are not alone. No one can take away our identities, and no one can tell us who we are or aren't. In April 2022, Demi announced she was readopting she/her pronouns.
Recently, I've been feeling more feminine, and so I've adopted she, her again. But I think what's important is like, nobody's perfect. Everyone messes up pronouns at some point, and especially when people are learning, it's just all about respect.
But Demi isn't the only celebrity to have shown solidarity with the trans community since Trump was inaugurated. Ariana Grande shared a series of posts to her Instagram stories with resources for LGBTQ+ youth, and Drag Race judge Michelle Visage, who is the parent of a queer child, commented under a clip of Trump's inaugural speech, "You will not erase my child, you piece of shit."
Love that at the end, the parent of a queer child.
Yeah, of course. Always the most vague label too that means nothing, like queer or non-binary. Could just be a straight girl with a septum piercing. Could be an actual gay kid, who knows?
Which is what Demi Lovato basically is. I see Demi as the ultimate like gay appropriator.
Oh yeah, like that's the thing with non-binary. All these girls coming out as non-binary because they sometimes feel feminine or sometimes feel masculine or don't really feel like a woman. They think that they're having a more unique experience than they're actually having. Like you'll see that you'll see that a lot. Like, I don't really feel like a woman. It's like, do you think women who don't call themselves non-binary walk around like feeling like a woman, feeling hyper feminine all the time? Everybody on the planet just feels like themselves. Everybody.
Yeah.
And like women all the time for decades have like sometimes felt like dressing up a little bit, sometimes felt like wearing a baseball hat, like that's just called being a person. That's just called changing your outfit.
Yeah.
It's not its own separate type of human being. It's just changing your clothes depending on your mood.
I mean, just on Demi, how does she not hear how ridiculous she sounds? You know, after she got bored of they them, she's there just like, lately I've been feeling more feminine. Okay, so now you're a whole different type of person, right? Got it. Now we use she her again. It just goes to show how it's just so unserious, the whole thing. You know, it's just like take it or leave it. And as soon as this becomes really unpopular, like I think you'll see all the non-binaries dropping like flies. It's either that or one day there's going to be a bunch of care homes with like flooded with non-binary old people, and then, you know, people in their 20s, 30s looking after them are going to think, what the hell is this? Like, why are all these people asking us to call them they them?
It's, I mean, 110%, 99% of them are going to look back on this and be embarrassed. Like,
Yeah.
it's so stupid. I mean, I remember when the non-binary trend first really started. So many, mostly girls,
Yeah.
some men too, but mostly girls I knew in real life were posting their coming out posts as non-binary. This long paragraph on Instagram, and the entire thing is just like, sometimes I like to wear pants, but other times I like to wear dresses. Or like,
I find it so
I've never
offensive
really
too.
felt,
Like to
the
me,
thing is,
someone
it's not
had to
even
come
like,
out and suffer. Like, you know.
no kidding. Yeah. These are like fully straight girls who they're like, I've always felt ambitious, which I guess in the 1950s might have been considered a male characteristic. But like, it's just,
Yeah.
the thing is, it's not even like I'm grasping at straws,
It's so
trying to find
easy.
a way to make this sexist. It's just dictionary definition sexism. Like, just the most blatant sexism ever.
Yeah.
And the fact that so-called progressives are saying this, like, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
And anyways, as far as like Laverne Cox goes, great that you're saying you're not going to be a victim. That's actually a good mentality to have.
Yeah, I thought that too.
That's a refreshing change, but I think she probably doesn't mean that in the way that I would like her to, or him to, whatever.
It's very hard for me to not see Laverne Cox as just a gay man, you know.
Because he is.
No, I know. But like with Blair, it's kind of like the signals in my brain, it's very hard for me to like imagine her as just like a gay boy. Maybe that's not for you, but for Laverne Cox, it's...
No, I agree. That's the thing with a lot of the HSTS type. I say she, her with Blair without even thinking, because that's how people it's not that I'm trying to be nice. I don't even think about it.
Yeah.
She just has that energy, kind of. And not to say that there's only one type of female energy. Obviously, there's lots of masculine women. But
it's just if the
like
if the
all,
signals are giving us that, then our brain will just go to do it, you know?
right. Same with Dylan Mulvaney. I instantly say he without even thinking
Me
because
too.
he's such a flamboyant gay man.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm not trying
It's
to be
so hard
mean,
for
but
me to
it's
see
just
him
like,
as a woman.
he's clearly a flamboyant gay man. So my brain just instantly
Yeah.
thinks that.
Yeah.
Anyways, but with like Laverne and these celebrities saying like, we have to stay strong, like we knew Trump was going to do this, like we can't let this happen to us, or it's just crazy how they cannot see that they did it to themselves. Like they can't be introspective. They can't even listen to someone like Blair, who has been saying all along, if you don't stop doing X, Y, and Z, this is going to happen. And then they don't stop doing X, Y, and Z, and it happens.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, how could, like, the evil conservatives, the evil Trump administration. It's like, you dug your own grave.
I mean, this is probably good for them because I feel like they create this woke religion because they need certainty and they need an enemy and they need a fight.
Yeah.
So now this is just proving their point. They're like, oh, this bogeyman, this conservative right-wing person that's going to put us into camps. They're basically, they're vindicated now. And they've said, you know, we've always said there's a huge problem on the right with transphobia and, you know, fascism and Nazis. So now they're just saying, see, look, we're right. But obviously they don't understand that what they're asking for is just too much. And we're just returning to a sensible sense of humanity and being real with each other. But one of the point that he said was interesting is, you know, we used to not be accepted and we used to be underground or whatever. We found a way to find community. I think that's not trans. That is gay people weren't accepted. And then some of them started to live as women because their lives were so difficult. You know, it wasn't that trans people were shunned and put underground. It was like all of those men were gay and then they had to be trans prostitutes in order to like pay for themselves, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of like rewriting of history that happens in
Big time.
The LGBT community. I mean, obviously you have seen a million times the Marsha P. Johnson myth spread. There's so much rewriting of history of like trans people were always at the forefront of this battle. We always went through this, and
that is true of any far left regime. When you look at the Soviet Union, when you look at other communists, you know, they specifically rewrote history intentionally in school textbooks and stuff in order to indoctrinate people and keep the narrative alive. So it's very much, it goes into their whole like hard left, far left, whatever you want to call it. You know, we never hear talk of the far left, even though everyone who's basically, you know, knows what men and women are far right.